going on, guys? My name is Zed and welcome to this video. This is the last week I watched number 21, and so far this week I have not watched very much. I think I've watched 3 movies, so let's get into it.
Swing it, groovy, mama, groovy.
So to start off the week, I watched the ARISTOCATS. And this movie I have been kind of fascinated with lately because of the sort of animation style that was used to make it. Just my short review before I get into a bit of the more technical historical side of the animation process. I'll just say the ARISTOCATS is a good time. It's really enjoyable. I would say that I really like the gags in this movie. The songs are good when there are actual songs in the movie. But overall, I was sort of mixed during, the first 15 minutes. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to like this. And then I slowly kind of was brought into the charm of the movie and overall enjoyed the ARISTOCATS, which I had not seen since I was probably a little kid. So the ARISTOCATS, 3.5 out of 5 stars. Now, let's get into a little bit of animation history. Welcome to this segment of A Lesson with Zed. So, the ARISTOCATS was the very last movie that Walt Disney greenlit before his death. And he personally picked Phil Harris to play the character of Thomas O'Malley, the alley cat, after he worked on him with his last feature film, The Jungle Book. Now, this movie does have a lot of that Disney charm right after his death. They were starting to transition, so it was kind of like that awkward period of we no longer have Walt Disney in charge, and now we have newcomers and old comers working together to produce this new Disney film. So there was this really cool camera that Disney pioneered called the MULTIPLANE camera system. And basically what it was this camera that could record animation with depths of field. So there would be 3 or 4 layers of matte paintings or other that would be layered on top of each other with a down camera pointing and shooting the different layers of animation cell. And basically what this would allow for animation is the 3D effect, this depth of field. This was before we had computers to help with that. So, basically, let me kind of put, a picture in your mind. So, you are looking down a winding road, and there's trees on either side. There's a house in the distance on the right, and there's some hills and the sun, right? The sun right up in the middle. Now, if you take a regular camera and you push into that, what's going to happen? Well, you're just going to push closer and closer to the picture, and everything on the picture is going to grow with you. Now, if you have multiple layers, one for the trees, one for the sidewalk, one for the house, one for the hills, and one for the sun, what would happen is you keep the sun still. Because no matter if you walk towards the sun or if you walk away from the sun, it doesn't get bigger, it doesn't get smaller, it stays the exact same size. So what you can do is you have the other 3 or 4 layers on their own and have them slowly move towards you at different speeds to create the correct, 3D effect that you want, where the sun stays still, but everything else you move towards, relatively makes it more realistic. So traditionally, animation is extremely expensive to make, and after the underperforming box office of Sleeping Beauty and Alice in Wonderland, they needed to figure out a new process. Enter one of the founding fathers of Disney, Iwerks. So basically, he decided that the best option that they could go to produce animation on a budget is to cut down the actual animation process. So traditionally, you'd have an animator who would draw and sketch out each of the frames. And the animator would then give those pieces of paper to the inkers and the painters. And basically, they take a piece of celluloid, which is just a flimsy piece of plastic. They'd lay it over top of the drawing, and they'd ink the lines in black ink over top of it. And then they'd flip that over, and they would paint in between the black lines. And you'd have to do that 12 times for each second of animation. That's extremely expensive. So Iwerks suggests xerography. which is basically from the Xerox machine, which is a copy machine. So what you could do is they could take the drawings, the sketches that the animators has made, and they could put it into the Xerox machine, the copy machine, and make copies of the outlines. And then the black outlines could be taken to the inkers, and they can just paint over it, and it completely gets rid of that process. But in turn, it had the animation be a bit more cheap looking. It looked more scratchy. There wasn't very much consistency. And honestly, because it was cheaper to do it that way, a lot of the animation suffered because it was way easier to basically copy and paste a bunch of different characters. And this process was used for the first time in Disney's feature 101 Dalmatians. So it would have been extremely expensive to draw each individual puppy, but when you have basically a copy machine, no matter big, small, whatever, you could just copy, 100 puppies to look the exact same and basically just do different dots on them. And there you go. It's cheap. It's easy. And then next up, I watched Batman Mask of the Phantasm, which is regarded as one of the best Batman movies of all time and one of the best animated movies of all time. And this fucking movie is fantastic. This was like Batman Year One before Batman Year One. This movie sort of follows Bruce Wayne's transition into Batman and his alter ego dilemma when he meets this love interest of his. He meets this woman that he falls in love with, and he feels bad because he made a promise to his dead parents, and he doesn't want to break it, but he also doesn't want to jeopardize his relationship with her safety, and his. The character of the Phantasm is very interesting, and the reveal of who the Phantasm is also really shocking. Honestly, I don't know if I've ever seen this movie before because I was genuinely shocked to find out who was under the mask. I would say my favorite character in this movie, though, is the Joker because he's my boy. I loved him in it, but also, strangely enough, they kind of gave him an origin story, or at least they kind of hinted at a possible origin story, and I like that, though I am one of those people that kind of likes my Joker very ambiguous. I like my Joker very good. So I like my Joker very ambiguous, and but I did enjoy his sort of origin story throughout. But overall, it's just such a fucking good movie, and it shows Batman in a very vulnerable state throughout. You can kind of see him as a little bit of a whiny baby, but I sort of like that. But overall, Mask of the Phantasm, super fucking good. 5 out of 5 stars. So, the first Goosebumps movie is a guilty pleasure of mine. I've watched it many, many times, and I really do enjoy it. And its sequel, Goosebumps 2 Haunted Halloween, is just not as good. I missed the character of R.L. Stine. Jack Black is just such a great presence in any film. He just brings a smile to your face when you see him. And his screen time being less than like 5 minutes in an hour-and-a-half movie is kind of disappointing. Haunted Halloween just felt a lot more rushed than its predecessor. It felt like the first one was really trying to establish this monster-type world, and its sequel just kind of took those characters and just kind of threw them in the background of some scenes. Obviously, you have Slappy there at the forefront, but, his character is still pretty good. Overall, a lot of the cool monsters that you saw in the first movie, like the werewolf and the abominable snowman, are just merely extras in the background. This movie really suffers from bad dialogue. Just bad dialogue. Very cliche and cheesy, unoriginal, just your generic... this feels like a TV movie. There's basically one line in this movie that sums up how bad the dialogue is, and it's basically when the sister says to the effect of, I can't go tonight because I have to watch my stupid brother and his friend. And it's just like, it's one of those lines that you hear so much, like, oh, my stupid little brother, or I have to babysit tonight. It's just so generic, and it's just so not creative. And Ken Jeong is in this movie as a supporting character. He plays the neighbor of this family, and his character just seems more creepy, and not the creepy like, oh, you know, scary Halloween movie kind of creepy. No, like kind of like get into my van creepy, kind of like, hey kids, I have candy all year round. Those kind of vibes, and not just the awkward neighbor who can't relate to other people. He just seems very... So the end of the movie did set up for a sequel, and I am looking forward to that because it kind of sets Jack Black to be more the star of the movie. I think just with scheduling conflicts, they couldn't get him to be in the movie for more than basically just a cameo. But I don't know. I'm looking forward to seeing some more Goosebumps because I really do enjoy the first one. I think there is potential for this series. You can see where I spilled water on my chest. I think there is potential for this series, but yeah, Goosebumps 2 Haunted Halloween, 2.5 out of 5 stars. So that is all I watched last week. Not too much to add to the list, but we are still going strong. I do believe we'll be able to hit 400 by the end of the year. But thank you guys for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. And until next time, guys, I'll be seeing you later. Peace.